in the creative industry, there is always this fluctuating baseline where there are people who are self-taught, there are people who are hobbyists, there are people who are who've trained for 4 years or 5 years, and both these sides of the spectrum, they're able to kind of find people who need their skills, who are willing to hire them, who are willing to pay them vastly different amounts of money for the same kind of work. What are the challenges you specifically have faced with this specific, you've been trying to branch out into branding, and you've been, kind of trying to build a portfolio around graphic design specifically. What are the challenges that you've been facing with that particular attempt?
Maybe with the same thing, I do not have a comparison. So since I'm an architecture student and I want to do branding or I want to do graphic designing, the benchmark I keep for myself is really low. So that could adversely affect, potential graphic designers as well. For example, I tend to, make a logo and I'd be like, I don't know the market value, the pricing, the time, the effort, and, the background work that graphic design students might be able to do or they are doing, which I lack. Because for me, it's just, I have a thought and I put that into it. And that's in my presentation. And, I know when other field people try to draw a plan or, that difference is there. So when you're well versed in your field, and when someone else, a starter, is climbing up that rope, the work quality would differ. The knowledge you have, the experience you have, and the mentors, they'll all make a huge difference.
Yeah. So that's actually interesting that you brought that up, because that's one of the things I wanted to address when I was kind of putting together this mentorship program. Is there is in the creative industry, there is always this fluctuating baseline, exactly for the reason that you just mentioned, where there are people who are self-taught, there are people who are hobbyists, there are people who are who've trained for 4 years or 5 years, and learned all of the technical skills related to graphic design, and they kind of know the lay of the land. They know what the current trends are. They know what what level they need to be playing at in order to be in the professional graphic design space. And but at the same time, there are also people who are learning on their own, and both these sides of the spectrum, they're able to kind of find people who need their skills, who are willing to hire them, who are willing to pay them vastly different amounts of money for the same kind of work. And that kind of changes so you would, even with whatever gaps you may perceive in your skill, or you may think that, okay, whatever I'm designing may not be the same caliber as someone who's been professionally trained. But at the same time, you will be able to find a client for whatever it is that you are doing at that level. You have clients at different levels, you have designers at different levels of skill. And that kind of creates this, like you said, it creates this sort of fluctuating baseline wherein, somebody who is more skilled or is more well-versed with what's happening in the market at the moment is, looking at people who might be producing work of a different caliber and thinking that they're kind of bringing the baseline down, because now there's somebody willing to pay, say, less money for that same work than they would,
Exactly.
And it kind of changes the value of the work. And that's something that I have been trying to address through this, is how do we kind of, bring everybody to the same level and have them playing at the same, bring them onto the same playing field. And, and that requires, because everybody has, regardless of whether you're an architect, whether you've trained as a graphic designer, everybody's kind of coming with this sort of nascent creative ability. And the only thing that's really missing or is more raw is the actual skill or the awareness of what's happening, in the industry. And I think those are the kind of gaps to be filled, and those gaps are unique and individual to each creative professional with their specific background and their whatever they've studied, the amount of work experience that they've had, and to kind of fill those gaps, it takes kind of a unique sort of one-on-one personalized process, which is what I'm trying to kind of do with you guys, is to kind of figure out what gaps each of you are facing and then figure out how to fill them. So for example, in your case, if you're trying to build a portfolio, maybe that's a specific gap that needs to be filled. How is it that we, kind of help you build a portfolio that is competing at the same level with somebody who's been, formally trained in design, and is, kind of aware of what's happening and what the various trends are at the moment and things like that. How do we kind of make sure that you're kind of competing at that same level? And then if you were to, be able to build a client base on the basis of that portfolio, how then are you able to deliver to them with the same, level of quality and the same level of finesse that somebody who's formally trained would do that,